Alright, hello all and welcome. I am Tmzoids, your host for today, as usual. First things first, right off the bat, this is my third time making this video. Yes, three. Because I just do one take. There's no editing of these videos. I just look at my camera and talk. And if I really make mistakes or have my facts wrong, I try and remake the video as best possible. Of course, people have already commented on my videos that, this is not right, this is not right, and I appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. Keep doing that. But I wanted my videos to be as factually correct as possible as someone doing this, like I said. But also, right off the bat, thank you to MetaHero who made this wonderful overlay for my YouTube. I don't have to click around or really use my stream overlay anymore for it. I have a set overlay for YouTube now. This is going to be it. I know it's kind of basic, but we can add more to it in the future. But right now it looks really good. It has all my social medias and it just has my face, and that's pretty much it. But getting into right now the topic, we're talking about Cloud9. Cloud9 performance of 0-2 starting in the NA LCS 2015 split, spring split, got me curious on this topic. And before I continue talking about Cloud9, no, this is not to jump on a bandwagon, or no, this is not to say that Cloud9 is not able to compete with the best of the best and no longer a great top tier team that can finish in NA. If you look back at my video, I did put Cloud9 in my power rankings. I feel like Cloud9 is still a dominant team, still a great team, and will do very well, successful. Will they end up in first? Maybe not. But they will end up in, I believe, the top three. I still constantly say that in my video. I'm not going to change my mind, and I'm not going to jump ship because they just had a first bad week. But it sparked my interest because I got a few of these questions before on my stream about if you could replace one person on Cloud9, who would it be? And at the time, it just seemed ludicrous, and a lot of people in chat kind of jumped in that bandwagon too. They said, oh, "I don't understand why. Why are we even discussing this when Cloud9 is just an overall good package?" Which we'll go in more detail on that in a second. But why would you replace or change anybody when Cloud9 is being successful and best team in NA? Well, it actually comes back to some of the history. Cloud9 wasn't just formed like that. It wasn't just Cloud9. They just got all together in a Challenger Series and were great. As you know, the Challenger Series, nobody's been able, as of right now, to uh, duplicate or repeat Cloud9 to its performance. But first things first, we have to go back to where Cloud9 started and actually started as Orbit. I have it off to the side here, so that's why I'm reading. The only two people that were originally from Cloud9 at the beginning of Orbit were Lemonation and High. High were the first two. And you had Nintendosh as the AD carry, and Nubby Pooh Bear as the AP mid, and Yazuki as top lane. Now, they weren't bad. Orbit was okay and whatnot. And then, as you read more on the On Gamers article and moving forward, they added Wild Turtle. Wild Turtle played for Orbit for a bit, but became a sub because they recreated themselves as Cloud9. Cloud9 came, and this is when they started really adding people. You know, they added balls to the top lane, which would be their first person, and then from there you'd go into Meteos, which would be your jungler and probably your face now as Cloud9. We'll talk a little bit more about that, and then later on adding Sneaky to the lineup, and like I said, putting Wild Turtle eventually on, as a backup, and then ending up in TSM's hands later on. But continuing on, so we have, it wasn't just like they were these five people came together and great. I think that's skewed for people who don't read articles and whatnot on Cloud9. They don't realize that Cloud9 was once Orbit. I didn't know that at first, but somebody mentioned it, so I looked some information of that, and I was actually surprised. I was like, oh, I always thought Cloud9 was this team that just got together and was great and just powerhouse their way through NALCS, but that was not the case. Now, like I said, when it comes to the faces of teams, I've talked about this before. You really have like the main player or one teammate that just exceeds of all and kind of like your overall face for the team. Big example of TSM, it would be Birgisen. He is known as like the superstar, the carry for that team. Even though Dyrus is very good in the top lane, and you have a very solid bot lane with Less Boy and Wild Turtle, and their jungle Sanatorin. Um, Bergson takes TSM to the next step. He can carry games. He does what he needs to do, and he's just the overall superstar. Same thing with COG. COG's in this kind of in the same boat. Double lift, and I guess Afromu is a pair, but more so Double lift is this great person, this great AD carry. You know, pretty much has to take CLG on his back, no matter who's on CLG and carry. When Cloud9 came into the situation, they were just a group of people that were just all together solidly good. They either went even or beat the lanes of NALCS when they first came in, and back in 2014. Um, it was the spring split of 2014 is when they finally made it there. And you have to it just they were solid and their jungling was really good and unique, you know. And Meteos kind of took the face for that. But starting off, LCS started in 2014. So you had them at first place. They took 24 and 4. They just dominated. They didn't lose any games really, and if they did lose a game, the next week they just bounced back and kept going on a winning streak, and they never lost two in a row. And then you had the All Stars in 2014, and they lost to OMG. They got third or fourth. It doesn't matter because they don't really do games for third and fourth place. But they lost to OMG 0-2. So you're like, all right, all right. So All Stars, it looked kind of shaky. They lost to a Chinese team. Chinese isn't, as we know, is not up to Korean's team. If we had to go, it'd probably be Korea, Chinese, EU, NA, around the same boat, depending. It fluctuates. EU and NA, I believe, are fluctuating kind of continents of skill and where they stand. Sometimes EU does better, sometimes NA does better. But then continue on, then they go into the summer split and they go 18 and 10, which is a little bit more. It looked a little shaky now. They lost two games in a row now, and things are looking kind of weird for Cloud9. But they still take first in the summer split of 2014. And then 2014 LCS playoffs, they took second, which was scary, in the playoffs. And this is kind of scary because you're like, whoa, they lost to TSM. TSM really always struggled with Cloud9 when they were at their peak. It was very scary because, you know, it was like maybe this is a telltale sign. Cloud9 losing TSM, and TSM went through this gauntlet. You know, they had a very big backstory when it coming to winning the LCS of 2014 playoffs. They were going through this gauntlet, 5 games with the top tier teams, and they came through, and it was neck and neck. It was 2-2, who was gonna win, and TSM takes the win, and Cloud9 gets second. This is the first time they've taken second in the LCS within like 3 or 4 splits now, and it's like, whoa, what's going on? And then the World Championships come, and now Cloud9 looks back into form. They're doing good again. They're doing great. Um, they were giving Samsung Blue, in my opinion, a more of a run for their money than TSM did with Samsung White. And then again, people argue that Samsung White was a better team overall. They kind of crushed Blue. They went on to win Worlds. They were just ultimately a better team. It was unfair. It's unfair to judge, and that's understandable. But Cloud9 just seemed like they were prepared, solid. And then they go into IEM, once again looking prepared and solid, beating Unicorns of Love 3-0 in a best of 5 match, and winning first place in IEM for the NA side. Of course, Gambit also winning for EU. And now we come to where we are today, 2015 spring split, and they're starting off losing their first 2 games. First one was to TSM, which they lost to in the playoffs of 2014, the NA playoffs, and then to another team. Oh, why can't I think of the name? Cloud9 lost to Gravity, which is, of course, um, also known as Curse Academy. So two strong teams. Gravity, believe it or not, I believe is a strong team because they have a lot of experience on their team. They have Saint Vicious, they have Cop, Bunny Fufu's not a bad support. A lot of people said he was a niche support for Thresh. If he can't pick Thresh, he's not niche. But he did great on Morgana today. And you also had mid laners like Kayn and Haunters bringing it to the game too, which they were just stepped it up. They played Zed and just pretty much dominated high. But I wanted to go back a little bit. I did say there was a face for Cloud9. Cloud9, like I said, was always good as a team as a whole. There was no one individual player where you could be like, this is Cloud9's best teammate. And at the time, a lot of times the face for Cloud9 was Meteos. Meteos got the face of Cloud9 because of his jungling style, his unique jungling style, and he was just dominant in the jungle. I think that has to do a lot with how his players played, though. I don't think that he really made or break the game. He did have a unique jungling style. He would farm up, and his ganks were very, very specific. If he knew they were gonna get a kill, he would gank. Like they would point this out multiple times in NA LCS, multiple times, and with replays they would show you. Look at Meteor sees a gank, he goes right in. He doesn't hesitate. Whereas the other junglers, they're like, I want to gank. I want to put pressure. And that was something new to the meta. That was something new that Meteos invented or innovated, I believe, to be more of a farming style jungler, laid back and gank when, prime opportunities. And he just always calculated well on those. Another face would be High. He usually does a lot of the talking, is more of the front person of Cloud9. But then again, like I said, he wouldn't be one that is to stand out, especially with High's kind of not so good performances lately, which we'll get into in a little bit. But High was one, he would talk and he would be like, main person, and he seemed to get this attention. Either you loved him or you hate him. A lot of people thought High was very cocky and couldn't do well with it, keep up with NA mids, and some people loved High. People thought of High very highly. Oh goodness, that was not intended. But they thought High was doing a great job. He's great mid laner. He can keep up with anybody. He can keep up with Birgison. He can keep up with Paul Belter. He can keep up with Link. He can keep up with them all. He's just doing good. But High's been struggling a little bit because of his collapsed lung. He went to the hospital. He didn't make it really to All Stars. They had to take Link, into the All Star group, and you know Link is a different story altogether when it comes to all sort of thing. Oh, he's gonna get better. He's playing with Cloud9, yada yada yada. And like I said, High kind of struggled through moving forward with how he performed in Worlds. He did that little grumpy thing. He sits there like this, and he sits there and staring at his computer screen like that's gonna change anything about the outcome now, and he's just mad. And he did that against TSM yesterday. He sat there all grumpy. He's like, man, I lost my first game. All mad and grumpy. But, you know, which comes to my attention, two things. One, who would you replace and why? Um, if Cloud9 can't bounce back and they're really struggling and they don't do as successful as I predict them to do, and they do have to really substitute or change their roster around between splits, which I feel, like I said, very highly unlikely. It's really drastic if teams do this. I mean, if there's really dire need for it, then you do it. You have to fix it. But they kind of stay consistent, and you know, it's really, really situational. Like you really have to be like, man, that split was bad. We need to change you. Like this is your fault. That's the only way I can see that happening between splits. But after all of, after both splits, after both splits, I think if it came down to somebody, it would probably be the mid laner. And why I say the mid laner is because, Balls does struggle, but I don't think top makes or breaks the game. Top, the meta it's in, yes, the top role does have an importance in the overall game, but they are not the make or break game. Yes, people mention Zion Spartan as a carry top laner who can, get people on his back and carry. And there are times where top laners can carry, but overall, I don't think Balls for his champion pool is the problem, and just how Cloud9 plays with him. He picks Rumble. Rumble can be a carry champion, don't get me wrong, but he's more of like a support. He throws down the damage. He's more AoE. He's just overall not a support for the team, but he's there. His presence is there, and he makes big impact. Meteos is still a strong jungler in my opinion. He's just slacking right now and having trouble with the meta. And then that's another thing you have to keep in mind when the meta changes, the junglers change. But Meteos is struggling. People are putting a lot of pressure on this Rek'Sai pick. If you don't pick Rek'Sai, then you lose the game because Rek'Sai is a strong jungler pick, and it just may not fit Meteos. Meteos may not understand the champion, but he's still very strong, Jarvan, in my opinion. He could play other champions. He could play Vi. He could probably pull out a Kha'Zix if need be. Probably not in the right meta, but he could pull out a Kha'Zix. He could pull it out Lee Sin if need be. He could do these junglers that still would compete with other junglers, and maybe not as top tier, high level then jungler, but he's still one of the top tier in NA. When I say top tier jungler, I'm talking about Korea and um, the Chinese LPL, and of course EU with their junglers. Which right now, Serviskin, I probably would be the next video I would make, is Serviskin, I can't say it, Servistaven for SK is doing an amazing job and probably like top tier jungler for that. But, and then you look at the bot lane, Lemon Nation, he's got his little notebook and he's not really doing bad, it's a dynamic duo, and Sneaky right now is the most underrated ADC. People were complaining on Reddit how he was not even in the video. This person made a video of all the famous like players, ADCs for LCS that were coming up for a hype video, and all these famous plays. And Sneaky wasn't at it, and everybody's like, "Where's Sneaky? Where's Sneaky?" And I'm happy that he's getting much more attention because he's been playing solid. He's been playing solid. He was playing solid in back when the LCS NA playoffs were happening 2014. He played amazing in Worlds. I didn't see a problem with him playing in Worlds. He just freaking dominated, and he's still playing like all his teammates. Yeah, his teammates are maybe struggling, but he's not feeding. He has a decent KDAs in both games they lost, and he's just doing exceptional work. He's right there. He is underrated for the amount of tension that it gets, which goes back to the face of Cloud9. I mean, Sneaky was never one, like I said, he's not very vocal either. But Sneaky doesn't really get attention to like Doublelift or Piglet. Piglet and Doublelift seem to get all the attention this split. They're like, oh man, this is going to be it. Doublelift, the best ADC versus the best ADC in Korea at one time, This is good. This is great. We can finally see this match. Oh man, all the time. Blah, blah, blah. But nobody sees that Sneaky is just been dominating his lane. I mean, he's been consistent, not dominating. Maybe consistent's a better word. He's been consistent, and he's been playing very well. And his scores and his CS and just everything altogether is just been great, and it doesn't matter what ADC he's played on. He's played on multiple different ADCs. He's played Graves. He's played Kog'Maw. He's played Severe. And everybody's like, why is he playing Severe? Or Severe's not a good pick. Well, yes, maybe for team comp overall, his team comp seeming a little wonky, but he did amazing on it. I don't understand why people were so upset and so angry with why Sneaky picked Severe when High and Meteos weren't getting their. That's what it was. It was High and Meteos that are not getting their clash, which leads me all the way to my end of the discussion here with Cloud9 is, besides Sneaky being underrated and needs more attention, that question that came up, if you had to replace somebody, who would it be? And if right now it'd be High. Like even though he's the face and he was there since Orbit, he's been struggling, and it may have to be where they sub him out, and this is where the importance in subs. Thorns talked about this, and many other journalists have talked about this also, is that this is where a sub should come in. This is where High shouldn't be benched for right now. You put a sub in and see how that goes, and that's why you need a good sub. This is why nobody understands this, is that some of these players that you haven't heard of are subs for one of the best teams, one of the great teams, like Samsung Blue. You had Huni, which is a top lane sub for Samsung Blue, which was one of the great teams in Korea, given to Fnatic. Nobody really knew about Huni. Broken Shard said he's probably the best top lane in the EU West. In his last First Blood video, he said he would argue that he's the best top lane in EU right now, and he's proven it right now. The first two games, Huni is done amazing, and just overall, Wild Turtle was a sub for TSM, or for sorry, my apologies, not TSM, for Cloud9. He goes to TSM. He did amazing. He replaced Chaos in the long run. But this is why it's important. You need good subs. And you know what? Cloud9, as of right now, does not have a sub for mid lane. They have a sub for top, jungle, support, and AD. But no mid lane sub. And I'm not saying there's anything fishy about that, but maybe he just needs to be benched. Maybe he needs some time off to kind of practice, you know. And like I said, I understand collapse lung. It's not like, oh, I had a collapse lung. Okay, back to normal. I'm playing all great. No, I understand. You know, it takes time. You have to recover. You need that time. But you know, when push comes to shove, you know, if NA is really about serious, taking the game serious and wanting to win, and the ultimate goal is to win worlds and be the best team in the world, then Cloud9 may think about subs, or maybe they'll go through these next two splits, struggle their way through, you know, go maybe come in third or fourth overall within the next two splits, and maybe they'll replace somebody then. But right now, Cloud9 is just it's telltale signs. You know, lo first losing to TSM in the playoffs, doing okay at Worlds, mediocre at Worlds, doing great at IEM, and then coming into LCS this week and struggling right off the bat. You know, it just did not look pretty for this legendary team who came in and was just steamrolling in NA at one time. You know, maybe they have to step back. But that is it. That's the video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, like the video. I appreciate it. I don't like to really push for those things, but I do appreciate the support. I do appreciate that you guys like the video. I know they're kind of lengthy, but you know, this adds for discussion. This is why. Add a comment. If I say something wrong, or you think I'm wrong, add a comment. Add your own discussion. Create more discussions on teams, or Cloud9 more. And make sure, if you want, you can check out my Facebook and Twitter, or and I stream every other day, kind of on Twitch. I stream on the weekends mostly, but you'll see me on there time for time with the weekdays, but I have school and whatnot. But I do hope you enjoyed the video. My name's Tmzoids, and I'm signing out. Thank you all.